Hey everybody, welcome back to That's So Fringy podcast. My name is Rick.
And I'm Kristin.
And we know that you've been excited for another Fringy Morsel. Ooh. So we're going to do that for you today. We're going to bring you some current events, something that you can munch on a little bit through the week, maybe research yourself. But yeah. How's things been? Good?
Things been good.
We're good.
We're hopefully coming out of the rainy season. We've had rain upon rain upon rain upon rain.
We need that sunshine. It's been nice today. So
yeah, it's been awesome. Sunny today. Almost feels springish.
We've got Easter coming up, Resurrection Day, which is awesome. For those that don't like the whole Ishtar name, we've talked about that before. It seems like that just happened, and we're coming around on it again, which is wild. It seems like the clock is moving so fast lately.
I know. Is that because we're getting old?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, probably that.
That's fair.
But we've got, we've got more episodes for you coming down the pike with more on the medical side. We're going to talk a little bit about cancer and some of those things. And then we've got another episode with Brian Godawa coming out this Sunday. So you guys be looking forward to that. He's got a couple new books out. So that's going to be a good conversation, as they always are. Also, what else we got? Oh, we've got Jeff Weitzel will be coming up with his new book. Yeah. I don't remember the name of it, but it's basically about seeing God in all of the creation and how basically creation speaks, something like that. So we'll get him on. You guys might remember him from one of the episodes we did before on world religions. So if you are hearing him for the first time, you might want to go back and listen to that, because that was a bit of
background that way.
Yeah, a little bit of origin story for him. Yeah. So that'll be fun. But today, as I said, we wanted to bring you a Fringy Morsel because, we've been hearing a lot about things on the news, and then you hear that stuff kind of go over into the social media spaces on X or on Twitter. Well, it's not Twitter anymore, Facebook or whatever they're calling all of these platforms nowadays, because I'm not on most of them. But I know, keeping my finger on the pulse of things, that people are talking a lot about things like tariffs nowadays. And, it's funny because nobody even really, a lot of people are confused at what a tariff even is, I think.
I don't remember, and this is probably just because I wasn't paying attention. It has nothing to do with my teachers, but I don't remember learning about tariffs.
I don't either. I'm sure we
did, but I don't, it was just kind of a word that I never really knew what it meant.
Well, now you got Trump. Love him or hate him, whatever you think about Trump. Some love to hate him. We call that TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, where you hate somebody so much that
it doesn't matter what they do, they can't win.
Yeah, they're not gonna. Nothing. That meme you sent me where it was like, let's. If Trump told everybody to drink pee,
it's Trump with his finger up, going, "Nobody drink pee." Yeah. And then it shows like a liberal person over there with a bottle of pee drinking it.
Yeah, it's just like it's like opposite day. Anything that he says, it's opposite. And we've talked about many times on here that Trump is not. Anybody to be worshipped or anything like that. I think some people go a little far in the whole MAGA movement, where they get a little too, he's the guy.
Like the opposite, where he can do no wrong. Not the case, because he's still just a human.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge Trump fan as far as his personality.
Yeah.
But is he doing a good job running the country? Yes.
Yeah. And what's he doing with these tariffs?
Especially compared to what the alternative was.
Right. Well, let's talk about tariffs. You did a little bit of research on tariffs and what they are. So, so let's educate the people.
Essentially, a tariff is a tax that's imposed by the government on imported goods, right?
Right.
So it's designed to kind of raise their prices, encourage consumers to buy domestic products instead. If it's going to be more expensive to import it from another country, then if you get it locally sourced, it seems as though it would be cheaper.
Right.
They can also serve as a source of income for the government and regulate foreign trade. So it's but essentially it's just a tax that is put on imported goods.
So you can either tax a country,
right,
or you can tax the people.
Right.
And for a long time in our country, we've been taxed, right?
We're taxing the people.
Yeah, we have the income tax and the federal tax.
And depending on the state that you're in,
right,
either a sales tax or like we don't have a sales tax here in Oregon, but we have very, very high state income tax.
Property taxes,
things
like that.
Yep.
So a lot of the taxing that happens here in America happens to the people. Mm-hmm. And what tariffs do is they bring in money from other countries. Mm-hmm. So instead of taxing the people to help, renew roads and infrastructure, bridges, all those different things to keep up with the economy.
Any government funded programs, even like Medicare.
Yeah. All of those things have to be funded somehow, right? That's basic economics. There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? Somebody's paying for something somewhere.
Now you sound like my dad.
Yeah. Well, he does have a business degree.
He does. He really does.
So, when you ask yourself who's paying for that, the answer is usually, especially as we're finding with Doge, the answer is usually the American people, right? We're the ones that are footing the bill for pretty much everything, and then some. A lot of the things that we don't need to be footing the bill for, like, all kinds of sex change operations for people in other countries. Things that don't matter, we're finding out.
Right.
But what Trump's talking about doing is changing that in the way of reciprocal tariffs. Meaning, if one country is going to be taxing us, then, why aren't we taxing them? If they have some sort of a goods, an example that he gives is Saudi Arabia. And it makes a lot of sense because we make that country rich with oil. We buy a lot of oil, right? But they also are taxing us.
Right.
And so are we taxing them? Are we taxing Israel? Are we taxing, Afghanistan? Are we taxing all of these other places? Because as we're finding out, they're all taxing us for lots of different reasons.
And there's a few different types of tariffs even. There's one that's a specific tariff that is levied as a fixed base. So the fee is kind of fixed on the type of item. So it would be something like a $500 tariff for a car, something like that, where it's a fixed amount that doesn't change. But then they also have another kind, and I don't know how to pronounce this exactly. Maybe you do, but it's an ad valorem tariff. Ad valorem tariff. I'm not sure exactly how to say it, but it's basically more like a percentage. So it would be like 5% of the imported value would be the tariff. So there's a couple different kinds. And then the kind that Rick is talking about, which is the reciprocal tariff. And that is just what it sounds. They're going to tax us. And so we're going to tax them the same amount, essentially. So
they could be taxing us, 85%.
Right.
And then we would be taxing them, depending on what we decide, 10%, 30%, 40%, or 85%. Could be a 1-for-1.
It could be, yeah. And there's different formulas for different products. Like I said, there's more than one type of tariff. So it kind of depends on what the product is as to what the reciprocal tariff looks like. And there's actually a list online where you can go and look at the percentage of tariffs per country that we deal with. It is long.
Yeah.
So if you need some reading material in the bathroom or something, then pull that up because that'll keep you busy for a little while.
Yeah. And we're not saying that tariffs are bad in any way. We're saying that they just are.
There's goods and there's bads.
Yeah, they are what they are. And if people are taking advantage of other countries, which I feel like a lot of other countries take advantage of America. We have, we're arguably one of the, if not the richest countries in the world. And so people take advantage of that. And we have a huge market. We have a huge consumer market where, people can benefit from that. And so it's, I guess like anything else, it's in the eye of the wielder, who's setting the percentages or the fixed rates and then who on the other end is setting up their percentages reciprocally. And then what does that do for relationships? Right. Because tariffs are a large part of our foreign policy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize is you can actually make deals with other countries.
And you can use that tariff as a bargaining chip or, as a method of making agreements on things.
Yeah, you want to bring somebody to the table about a war or, some kind of indiscretion or something like that. And you want to talk about something that's really serious, but how are you going to hold another country to account?
Right.
Is anybody really going to do what they say they're going to do? And so a lot of ways that you can do that, and a lot of ways that Trump is utilizing it is as these bargaining chips. It's the art of the deal for him.
Yep.
He's making deals with other countries to be able to give America a better foothold in the world, whereas we've been taken advantage of in a lot of ways.
We've been taking care of a lot of other countries.
And there's a lot of other countries in the same boat that have been taken advantage of, like Australia and Canada. Canada's really been taken advantage of in a lot of ways.
Right.
And so, it's something to be looked at. And I think for a long time, it's been largely ignored because most of the money is coming from the American taxpayer. Right. So why change it when you can tax the people?
Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But it is broke. That's the deal. It is broke, and we do need to fix it. So this is one way that I feel like he's trying to get that accomplished. So starting on February 1st, he basically placed a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico. Mm-hmm. And then subsequently a 10% tariff on imports coming from China. So, and these are just, like I said, there's numbers up the wazoo of what all this looks like. But the reasoning that for him doing that was kind of to force these countries to cooperate with the United States. Like, hey, we're going to do this. You're going to be held accountable now. Yep. There's some accountability to the other countries that there hasn't been much of in the past. And then, also they're trying to stem the flow of the illegal immigrants coming in, bringing in drugs like fentanyl. We have a crisis of fentanyl happening here in America that, I just watched a documentary about Skid Row, and it was just like, it's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. So, that's another way that they're utilizing tariffs to try to kind of stem the flow of that kind of stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So, I kind of thought it would be interesting to go over a little bit of like the good side and the bad side. Like if we were going to make a column, this is what we do with our children. Yeah. Make a column, make a good and a bad, a pro and a con, whatever you want to call it, but make a column and write down in each category the things you can live with, the things you can't live with. So some of the, what would you say are some of the bad sides of the tariffs? I looked up a few, so I have a few on the list here, but I just wanted to see what your thoughts were first. Yeah, so I guess I would say something along the lines of, like I was saying before, whoever's wielding it can wield it terribly to where you can really hurt an economy by doing that, especially if it's like as an example, if we were reliant on somebody's oil for sure, like we had to have that oil for energy, which I don't think we do, but that's another subject. Then if the tax was really high, that would make it very difficult for us to do those things, to make those payments, right? And so because of that, it would make us very dependent on that country, which would make us a slave in a way. Totally. So what do you got? So, one of the ways of that leans towards the bad side would be that they can make domestic industries less efficient and ineffective by reducing the competition. So it's kind of like, what's your incentive to keep your prices lower? Well, it's because I can go across the street and get the same thing for $5 cheaper. Right. So you lose a little bit of that competition factor, I guess. Yeah. And then another way would be that it can hurt domestic consumers. Since there's a lack of competition, it tends to push up the prices. That's another downfall of having these taxes on these imported goods, which has really affected the American people. Yeah, in by way of inflation. Yep. If anybody's tried to get eggs, recently. Yeah, $35 for a 5 dozen because we buy it by the 5 dozen. So it's gone from like $12.99 to $35. Yeah, it's classic supply and demand. Right. And we can't have chickens in the city limits, I found out, because I tried.
We're not supposed to.
Well, the chicks are so cute. And then I was like, hey, they can lay eggs later on.
Yeah.
Nope, turns out you can't have them.
Well, I mean, that's a whole different discussion about like going back to nature and actually, raising your own chickens and doing all of that stuff, and the regulations that say, no, you can't do that. Like, why?
And it makes me think like, okay, so if I have a chicken, or if I have a what do they call it? A group of chickens. Is it a gaggle?
We're going to go with that.
So if I have a gaggle of chickens and they're producing, let's say 10 eggs a day, I don't know. Is it?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. Oh.
You got me on that.
We're going to go with gaggle.
10 a day.
So they're producing, 5, 10 eggs a day or whatever. Well, that's all you're going to be able to eat because that's all they're producing, right? So I think it would also kind of stem the issue of Americans overeating and having unhealthy eating habits.
Right.
Because you're reliant on what you can produce, your homestead, your whatever can produce to survive. So it would help in that way too. But
not to mention like all of the factory raised chickens out there and all that stuff that goes with it. And
you would know what it's eaten. You would know that it's sustainably sourced. I mean, all of that stuff that people are paying attention to.
And all the waste from the packaging.
Yeah.
Like how many freaking egg cartons do you throw away when you could like there is no carton? You use 1 or 2 cartons just so that you can bring them into your house, and you use them over and over and over again. Right. Whereas now we've got this huge waste of just throwing away all of these Costco sized containers of, it's just more garbage. It's not sustainable. It doesn't make any sense. But why do we digress?
Because it's what we do. It's what we do.
We're supposed to be talking about tariffs.
We're real hot about the eggs right now, all right? Just back off.
And sustainability. Anyway.
So another way that they can is that they can generate tension between countries, obviously, because you can favor specific industries or specific geographic regions or whatever.
Right.
So like an example would be a tariff designed to help manufacturers in cities, but then on the flip side, you can turn that around and it can hurt consumers in the rural areas who don't benefit from the policy. So it's kind of this like give and take where there is always kind of a downside to this kind of stuff too, because it can generate these tensions between cities, between countries, between states, whatever. And then another one would be an attempt to pressure a rival. So it can be used as a sword, kind of like you said earlier. It can be used as a weapon.
I always go to worst case scenario.
Right.
Obviously.
Right. And then you start to, get this like where you devolve into this unproductive cycle of retaliation between countries. And this is kind of what's commonly referred to as, if you've ever heard the term trade war, that's kind of, that's basically what these are dealing with.
You're
so
having
there
this
are
trade
some
war
downsides to the
because you don't have to have a kinetic war in order to really be in a war.
Right.
A lot of the Cold War was like that. It was trade war. It was reciprocal hurting of each other just by these little knives financially. And unfortunately, if we're going to live in the financial system that we live in, it is the system. It's inevitable that people are going to be greedy and take advantage of that. As long as evil exists in this world, those things are going to happen. And so when you make fair deals, which is, I think, a lot of what Trump is trying to do, is make the best deal for everybody involved. Like what is everybody, how, you bring people to the table and how do you garner world peace? How do you bring people together? And I'm not just talking about localized peace with this person and that person, but, it really seems to me like
globally.
It really seems to me like Trump wants to bring peace to the whole world. He's tired of the wars. He's tired of the fighting. He's tired of all of that. I mean, he's not starting any wars. That tells you something. And when he's asked, like, who do you want to win, Russia or Ukraine? He says, I don't want any more people to die. How about that? Like, can we just like stop the wars? It's ridiculous.
Those are the little bits that CNN skips over.
Yeah.
They're like, no,
Bill Burr's
we don't want that quote. Take that one out.
Yeah, Bill Burr's got a really funny skit right now, or last year he was talking about, like, we're still doing that? We're still doing war? why are we still doing that?
Right.
And it's funny the way that he says it,
right. But it is archaic if you think about it.
Yeah, what are we doing? We can't come to an agreement with all the money and resources and technology and everything that we have. We can't just come to an agreement to just be nice to each other already, like Jesus is asking us to do. Like, finally just figure it out.
Right.
And just be nice to each other. And I think Trump's really trying to, like I said before, love him or hate him. I go by the fruit. Jesus told me to judge a tree by the fruit. And what I'm seeing, the fruit of his actions is that, for now anyway, is that he's trying to help people make a good deal.
Right.
Something that they can get on board with, we can get on board with. Nobody's taking advantage of us. We're not going to take advantage of them. And if they don't want to come to the table and they don't want peace, say they still want to fight or they don't want to be nice to us, well then, yeah, whatever. That's what they've asked for. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes when you're asking for a harsher hand, I always tell my kids this, like, if you're asking for it, then I'm going to get upset. Like, if you're doing things that you're not supposed to be doing, then I'm going to be upset. It's reciprocal. Mm-hmm. But if you're nice and you're loving and you're doing everything that I've asked you to do, and vice versa, we're in a loving relationship, then there shouldn't be any of this fighting.
Right.
And if you don't put the fist out, then I won't put the fist out.
Yeah.
And if we can all just chill that out with these tariffs, which hopefully that's what we're going to see.
So, what would some of the good things be? We would look at, it would produce revenue. I mean, the bottom line is that it would produce revenue for our country.
Huge revenue.
And people should be on board with that. Like, that's a good thing that our country is going to be generating revenue. Another thing would be that it opens up these negotiations with other countries. It gives you the opportunity to bring your offer to the table, deal with these other countries, and come up with a solution that is fair for everybody.
Fair, yep.
Another one would be that obviously it supports our nation's goal of the American dream, people being able to have freedom, people being able to have land, people being able to, own their little plot,
There's a reason that people want to come to America.
Right.
The American dream is, it may be lost on some people, but the way that this nation was founded and the Constitution that we have and everything like that, like, people want this freedom that we supposedly have, but if we really had it, like if we really had all of the opportunities and all of the land and we didn't have to pay out the gills in taxes all the time.
If we as a country can generate our revenue in another manner other than taxing your own people, that seems like a goal that we should all be moving towards. That seems like a collective good thing for everybody.
Well, he's talking about abolishing the IRS, right? Like, how do you, people have talked about this for a long time, and we've talked on this podcast about how the whole financial system is rigged against us. It's corrupt. It was a group of guys that got together on Jekyll Island, and they came up with this pact where they were going to basically rob us blind. And
what's that book that what's her name wrote about Jekyll Island? It's really interesting.
Sanger? What's her
Laura Sanger.
Laura Sanger.
She's got a book about Jekyll Island that is very worth reading for sure, because you start to put the pieces together like, wait a second.
Yeah.
What were these guys doing over there on Jekyll Island? Well, they were coming up with the whole system to basically rob their own people.
Yeah.
Instead of getting it from other countries.
How do you abolish the IRS? How do you break this system of slavery? How do you do that? If I was going to take a hammer to it, that would splinter it into so many pieces that I wouldn't be able to control it, right? So that it would affect all of these people in a very negative way if I just smashed it with a hammer. But if I surgically went in and, like a cancer, tried to take it out without affecting the other areas as much as possible, there wouldn't be this ripple effect of destruction. And so I think a lot of that is, and these are hints, I think, that he's giving us, is that, in order to abolish the IRS, in order to get us out of this system, you have to replace it with something else that is going to not be a shock to the system. And obviously we want to fix it for the world, for the American people. But how do you do that without hurting the American people at the same time? And so if you can stand up these tariffs first and have an influx of revenue, as you said, coming in droves, in huge waves, as we start collecting some of this money back from other countries, or at least they start paying their fair share for the things that they get from us, then all of our companies can start coming back to America. And we're already seeing that with a lot of these car manufacturers coming back to America, because it's actually going to be cheaper and more beneficial to them, and they want to, right? They want to be here, but it was cheaper. They're businessmen. Right. It was cheaper for them to move their factory, like Apple. It's cheaper for them to have a factory in China than it is to have it here, because of all of the regulations and everything. But if it's actually not cheaper, if it's cheaper to do all of that in America because of these tariffs, then how much more will our economy boom? And the less that we have to pay in taxes, or not have to pay taxes at all, that would be a weird concept, right? Could you imagine if our coffers were so full that the government's just like, we don't need your money. Right. We don't need it.
Well, that's another good thing about the tariffs, is that it makes the market predictable, because every time there's a car that's bought or sold, there's going to be a $500 tariff. It's a set amount, what it is. Whereas if they're getting money from income taxes, that can wax and wane based on the job market, based on how many Americans are working. Yeah. So if there's less Americans working, we're getting less revenue for the government in the form of taxes, whereas a tariff would make the market predictable and stable.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And it's just true. It's funny, if you go back to President McKinley, you realize that this stuff actually used to be part of American way of life. This was the systems. This is how it used to be under people like McKinley. And he was highlighted by Trump not that long ago, because he was saying they were wealthy. They were so wealthy that the American people didn't have to pay for the roads. They didn't have to pay for the schools. They didn't have to pay for all of those different things. So could you imagine how much money then goes back into the consumer's pockets? Because you get to actually keep your wages, and everything that you own is actually yours. You're not taxed on everything.
And the things that you want to purchase, you're either able to trade, barter, whatever. And these tariffs just create a better system, in the form of reciprocal tariffs, obviously, is what I'm referring to.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing. I think if you were to...
we'll see how it all shakes out. That's the deal, is you don't know until some of this stuff goes into effect. Because there is a downside. There will be a downside that the American people will have to deal with. But then it just comes down to, is it worth it?
Yeah.
And that we don't know. That's yet to be seen.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff, I'm trying to remember when...
There's always risk versus reward.
Right. Exactly.
And you're never going to have risk as nothing. There's always going to be risk.
Right.
That's what we tell our children, So when you make a decision, like you want to change a job, or you want to, buy a new car, or any of those things, buy a new house, there's always risk.
Right.
Nobody's going to buy a perfect house. There's always going to be things that come up that are going to break. Same with cars. We know that better than anybody.
Yeah, we have a Land Rover that has a busted engine.
So it's there's so many things that you can't always predict.
Yeah.
There's always going to be risk. But how
much
a
lot of this stuff
reward are you preparing for?
Yeah, exactly. And some of this stuff is yet to be seen, like I said. So some of it will take effect on April 5th. And then the reciprocal tariffs, those are set to start on April 9th. I don't know how firm these dates are, but so really any time. Yeah. And then some of them are started back in February, like I said. So we'll see. That was kind of, I just wanted to kind of sum up, what tariffs are for people. So, because there's a lot of talk in the news about these tariffs, and a lot of people are up in arms about it, and they don't really know or understand what they are. Yeah. So we just kind of wanted to go through some of that with you as far as a current event.
Yeah. There's a lot of TikTok lawyers out there that are just trying to make stuff up, or they're just mad at Trump, and so they don't tell the truth. And
or they just regurgitate what they've already heard from somebody else, and they're not checking to see if it's true or if it's accurate or whatever. Yeah, it's just silly,
So we just wanted to let everybody know what they are, what it looks like. Obviously, we shared a little bit of our opinion on some things, but we also said,
and full disclosure,
it's yet to be seen.
Me and Rick don't super agree on the Trump thing. That's one of the things that, I don't know. I'm still up in the air about this man because I get a lot of good, and I also see a lot of the bad, but that's how it is with anything.
Yeah.
If we look at the alternative, that was just bad and bad. At least we have a little good here, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's an excellent segue, because now we got to kind of get into a little bit of the dark. Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of dark and light, because there is a lot of evil in this world. Yeah. We already know that. Yeah. And on this podcast, we've talked many times about, exploitation of children, adrenochrome, just the dark side.
The dark fringy.
Yeah, of society. Yeah. A lot of kiddie porn and molestation and torturing and all of those different things. And it's obviously dark because it's a sickness that a lot of these people have, or maybe they're demonically influenced or possessed even, and they've allowed themselves to get to this place, whether through compromises or things that have been done to them or whatever, trying to give everybody as much benefit of the doubt as you can. But once you step over this threshold of hurting children, we've said it many times, it's like tying a millstone around your neck and being thrown into the water. Like, God is not
messing around.
He's not going to mess around with you hurting innocent children. Yeah. And so we wanted to bring to your attention on this Fringy Morsel, this global crackdown that just happened on this website it's on the Tor. It's on the dark web. For those of you that don't know, you got to use a Tor browser, or you got to go into the deep depths of the internet to get to some of this dark stuff. It's where a lot of child trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, all of those different things happen. We heard a lot about the Silk Road back in the day that was shut down. Some of you may have heard that, but there's a lot of darkness that happens on the dark web, which is why they call it that. And so this website is called KidFlix, and it was actually on the dark web, and it was a major child sexual exploitation platform, exploiting children in sexual ways.
And by deviancy. Major, he's talking 2 million users. We're not talking like a little. This is a huge operation. This KidFlix.
I mean, it sounds like they're just at the beginning stages of this. Obviously they're making these arrests. They've arrested like almost 80 people or something like that. But in doing this, because a lot of this is digital and you're on the black market and you're using things like Bitcoin and stuff like that, you're pretty anonymous, unfortunately. But they have been able to make at least 1,400 identifications of people, which is going to lead to many, many more arrests.
And this is over 35 different countries. I mean, this is a huge operation that 35 countries worldwide participated in.
Yeah, it's a worldwide operation that they've been working on for a long time, trying to just get rid of this filth. Because if this website exists, right, then there is, unfortunately, like we were just talking about before with supply and demand.
There's a market for it.
There's a market for it. Right. If it exists and it's allowed to happen, then there's a market for it. Unfortunately, all of those people are going to find a way to get to this type of darkness. And when you have it available, obviously it's going to happen. There was over 72,000 videos on this website. And I know that's hard to hear for some of you people. Some of you have maybe even been abused yourself, and it hits and we don't mean to trigger anybody or anything like that, but we do know that this is not going to be mainstream media news. Right. They're not going to tell you this on CNN or Fox News or anything like that. Hopefully they do, but I don't see that happening. They, the site's shut down, and that's the goal, right? And I think personally, God deserves all the praise and all the glory, because for these people, these 35 different countries coming together and doing this operation, it means that that it's a problem, right? And when we as a world see it as a problem, then we will, as you can see, eliminate it. And I think for a long time, it has just been allowed to happen,
right?
Because people were calling things that were bad good and things that were good bad. And I think, God's starting to right that a little bit. He's trying to flip that back to where it belongs. And we wanted to bring that to your attention. I know it's dark, but it's also something that you should know.
And again, where there's dark, there is also light.
Yes.
And so, like Rick was saying, glory to God for this operation and for this website being shut down. These are the things that we should be celebrating, maybe less focus on celebrating who's winning the Super Bowl and more on the fact that this operation that started in 2022, so it's been years in the making, they did it.
Yeah.
There's victory.
Yeah. And it may have even started before that, but that's what we've read, and they've been tracking those 1.8 million, almost 2 million people. I'm talking, it's probably going to be going on for a while. These arrests are going to, they just identified people. Now they have to round them up and arrest them and shut their servers down, because those videos are still somewhere else, probably, unfortunately. Right. And so just continuing they cut the head off the snake, but we all know how that goes. So hopefully they continue to walk this down. And again, all glory to God, because it's a darkness that needs to be eradicated from the world, and hopefully it is.
Yeah.
So with that, guys, we're going to leave you, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. Leave us a comment if you did. Also, you can go down into our description and see there's ways that you can buy us a coffee. There's ways that you can get some merch. You can be a monthly subscriber if you want to. There's all these different things that you can do down in that description. But more importantly, if you guys could leave us a like on all the
share this with people.
On all the different platforms.
That's how these things catch fire. Is somebody sent a podcast to somebody else? You know? So send it on. Send our YouTube channel over to somebody. We do the fringy. Yeah. Okay. So you never know what's going to come out of our mouths, but it's going to be fringy either way.
That's right. Well, with that, we're going to get out of here. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will talk to you guys on the next one.
Yes.
Bye.